Welcome to Glad Tidings with me, James Macquarie.
And me, Dan Wynn. This is the show in which James and I talk about the progress we've made along with the amazing Glad community towards cleaning up the mess we've made of our atmosphere.
What are we going to talk about today, Ben?
Well, coming up today, we've got some exciting news about a milestone we've hit in terms of impact. Just as a very quick reminder, we're in season 1, so the numbers are small, but it's a great milestone to have hit. So we'll tell you about that. We've opened a whole new market, so people in a new market, new country, new geography can join Glad. And we've got tales of what we could do, what we've learned this week, and what lessons we've learned, what we could do to do things even better. And you're going to tell us all about one of the greenhouse gas removal methods. So that's coming up soon as well.
I am. And before we get into that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's given us feedback on the last episode of the podcast. It's really, really useful to hear how we can improve and how we can do things better. And Francesco, if you're listening, I am going to work on making sure I do less umming and erring as we go through the recording. So what went well this week?
Yeah, let's get into it. So first things first, this whole thing, everything we're doing is about impact. So it's how we measure our progress. It's our North Star. And as I mentioned, we're in season 1. We're just a couple of weeks into season 1. For clarity for those listening, we do 12-week seasons, and everyone that contributes, we tally up the amount of money that's contributed, which delivers a certain amount of impact. And then at the end of the season, we deploy that to the different suppliers of greenhouse gas removal, and we monitor exactly what's happening in terms of the carbon dioxide and other gases being sequestered over time. But what's important is we've hit 10,000 kilograms in that tally. So our totalizer is showing over 10,000 kilograms, which is the amount of impact we'll have from the amount of money contributed from you guys, from the Glad community. So that's fantastic. We're super, super happy. And that's not all, because we've also opened a whole new market. We launched with currencies, basically, with GBP in the UK, with euros and with US dollars. But because we had people, basically friends of colleagues, ex-colleagues of James and I in Canada, we opened up Canada. We've introduced the Canadian currency. So if you're in Canada, if you're listening in Canada, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from signing up. And so we're excited to have some Canadian members of Glad coming soon. What else has been going on, James? Well, I tell you what I wanted to talk about was Rebecca's quote. Just my favorite quote from the week. So whenever we're talking to people, members that sign up, whether they've signed up or whether we're rekindling relationships and saying, what do you think to what we're doing? Give us some feedback. We put a question to one of our members, Rebecca, and said, do you feel like us that it would be great if there was more you could do to help fix climate change? Would you contribute £1 a week? Which obviously, as you all know, listening to this, that's the amount of contribution to join Glad. That's the level of commitment. And Rebecca's answer, it's only 2 words, but it's fantastic. It's hell yes. So Rebecca's in. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Yes, thank you for that. And the energy of that reply was amazing. Yeah, it's exciting when you get that kind of response from people. Following on from that, in the last episode, I talked about one of the things that we were doing was looking to speak with people to do product research. And I'm happy to report back that we've now had I've done 7 of those interviews with people, had in-depth discussions with them about their views on climate change and what they would like to do about it, the things that they've tried, the actions that they have taken, the actions they haven't taken, and why. And we've got 4 more booked in for next week. So I'm almost to my 10, or in fact, slightly over my 10. That was the target for the next few weeks. And we've learned lots from these conversations so far. So the primary one is that people really are worried about the impacts of climate change. It's something that does, in some cases, keep people awake at night. And they really want to take some action. So lots of people are doing things already in their day-to-day life to try and limit their footprint and try and change their consumer patterns. And the really exciting things from those conversations is that many of the people we've spoken with have said the community aspect of Glad is really appealing to them. So being part of something bigger than just themselves. Lots of people are talking about how the actions that they take are, small things that they can do, but they don't feel that they're having a big enough impact by making those changes. They need lots of other people to make changes too to really move the needle. So an appealing thing about what we're doing with you, our community at GLAD, is that by being part of something bigger, they feel like they can have influence over moving that needle, which is fantastic. Another thing we've learned from those calls and other conversations we've had as well is that we need to be a lot clearer about what impact our members are having and how that impact will manifest. So something to work on there.
It is. It comes with a however, because that sort of feels like it's something that we haven't thought about, but of course we have. And what I think my learning from that is we're not doing a good enough job of communicating how we communicate the impact you have. And so lesson learned, landing pages, website sign up. Literally, we're out there right now talking to businesses and individuals, asking them to join GLAD, join us all in this movement. And we're just not doing a good enough job of showing them how we'll report the impact. So we have the concept of an impact record. Every member of GLAD gets one. Every business that joins gets one. And it has that detailed breakdown of exactly how much was contributed, what the impact was. And of course, right now we're in season 1. Nothing has actually been sequestered because this is going to take time. But post season 1, once the money's been deployed, that impact record will update and will show exactly what's going on fully transparently. So we have a lot of it, but no question we could work harder and do better.
Yeah, I think it's always difficult as founders and people working on this day in, day out with our heads really in the weeds on how this works and what we need to do to have the best impact we can. It can be difficult to communicate all of that thinking and all of that knowledge and all of that time and energy we put into this to people who aren't in this day to day, haven't had the context that we've had. So it's always humbling and I think really beneficial when we get the feedback from people saying, we haven't explained this very well, I don't understand it. And we do have answers to these questions. We have thought about these things. We just haven't explained it well enough yet. And being big proponents of the idea of show, not tell, we're very conscious we could do better on that side of things.
Yeah. I think that's a useful segue because it was a good learning from, perhaps I should just tee this up with, a lot of what we're talking about here is direct individuals contributing, which is how we've kicked this off. It's the kind of get the flywheel started, or we think of it in terms of snowballs. We build a small little snowball and then roll it down the hill. It becomes a bigger snowball. We're going to need a gigantic snowball or snowman or whatever we would call it in order to fix climate change. But we've got to start somewhere. So we're starting with these individual contributions. So if you're listening to this and you know someone that cares about climate change, get them to join. That's the ask. Alongside that, as a reminder for everybody, what we're looking to do is work with banks because we think there's a great opportunity with banks to get individuals who are already spending their money and to use Roundup within banks. So a parallel thread has been to talk with banks. We've had some really interesting conversations with banks this week. And the bit that I just want to pull out on is exactly what you're talking, James, which is we're deep in this and we sort of forget that because we're very, very deep into how you remove greenhouse gas, how to actually have an impact, how to report on it. And indeed a lot deeper than not just the general population, not just all of the GLAD members, but those that are working within the field of sustainability. We kind of forget that we've gone very, very deep on a particular topic. And that came across in one of these calls. And just during that, we were talking about how we will actually clean up the mess, how we will remove greenhouse gas out of the atmosphere. And on that call, I talked about one of those methods, enhanced rock weathering, which I thought was a useful segue because I know that you want to talk to us all about enhanced rock weathering today.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned that, isn't it? It's great. So by the time you're listening to this or watching it back, we should have a new blog post up on the website, which goes deep on what is enhanced rock weathering. And to give you a little teaser of that, to whet your appetite, I thought we'd just describe that in 10, 20 seconds now. So we at GLAD believe that we need to clean up the atmosphere, and we believe strongly that we need to do that using as many methods as possible. There's no silver bullet to cleaning up our atmosphere. So we've spent, as we've just discussed, a lot of energy and time over the last year or so going deep on all the different methods that are available out there for helping us clean up the atmosphere. And one of them is enhanced rock weathering. And enhanced rock weathering is a method of removing specifically carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And the way it works is kind of based on a natural process. So rock weathering happens every day around us. It's been happening for millions of years. And it's the process where as rain falls through the sky, that rain collects carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and it becomes part of the rain. And when that rain lands on certain types of exposed rocks or soils, the rocks react with the carbon dioxide in the rain and form solids that lock away that carbon for millions of years. Enhanced rock weathering is a human intervention in that process where we take those rocks, spread them across a large area in fields usually, and by having them spread across a large area, they can react with more rain. It comes into contact with more rain when the rain falls, and therefore it can capture more carbon over a shorter period of time. And the exciting thing about this technology is that it is a permanent removal method and that it accelerates the removal of carbon from taking hundreds of thousands of years to remove tons to between 5 and 20 years to remove a ton of carbon. So we think it has a huge potential to help in this climate cleanup activity that we're working on. And as I said, if you want to read more about that, it will be on our blog very, very shortly, and we will put the link in the show notes.
It's just the simplest I like. It's just that concept of you take a rock and you imagine, let's say it's a rock, a cricket ball sized rock, something like that. And when the rain falls on it, it's going to interact with the surface area. So the enhanced bit, just crush it up, because the smaller particles, the more surface area there is. And then once you've done that, spread it out so that more rain can hit it. It's such a super simple concept. Yeah, we really love it.
It is an exciting one, and it's gaining traction in the community as well, which is fantastic. So happy to be supporting this as a method. Right, we again promised that we'd keep these short and sweet. We've done better this time than we did on the previous one. We're closer to the 10-minute target that we're looking for, but I think we should wrap it up there.
I think we should, but we can't finish without an ask. And so the ask is, if you're listening to this and or watching this, indeed, of course, and you can afford £1, $1, $1 Canadian as of now, €1 to join GLAD per week, and you haven't yet done so, please do so. That's another learning from this week. There are a number of people I've spoken with who said, yeah, absolutely, I'll join this. For me, £1 a week is inconsequential, but I can completely see how, as part of a broader community, we can have a real impact. But yet they haven't signed up. And so there's that tipping point of get on with it, come and do it. So if you become part of this community, contribute. And then the other key ask, which is one I think we should always finish with, which is, who are you going to tell? Think about that one person you think could listen to this podcast, watch this podcast, join us, contribute, and become part of this community. Just that one person, that's what we ask. There we go.
Indeed. Well, thank you, Ben. See you next time.